What is going on, everybody? And thank you for tuning in to Between the Hash Marks. I am Sean McCabe alongside with James Kokolek. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing good. I'm a little bit tired. I started the new job this week.
Yeah, how's that going?
It's going great. Thanks for asking.
Good. We have a loaded show for you here today. We are going to be discussing a little bit of the World Series. It seems like it's a matchup for the ages. We're also going to be talking about who is the best team in the NFC right now. But first, it's time for my opening rant.
Your number one source for sports.
You know who I can't stand? Kevin Durant.
He looks like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had a kid.
Now, who can argue with that?
I hate Boston.
I'm the biggest Miami Heat hater you'll ever meet.
I just don't understand where you're getting your bogus information from.
What the hell are you even talking about?
Well, I'm sorry you're too freaking sensitive to handle the truth.
You think I'm crazy? I'm just getting warmed up.
You're now Between the Hash Marks with James Kokolak and Sean McCabe.
The Cleveland Browns hired Paul DePodesta in January of 2016, and he was a successful baseball pioneer with the Moneyball approach. And when they signed him, at first I thought, wow, this is extremely interesting. Smart people can adapt quickly and become super successful. And there is a time and a place for Moneyball. Even in football, all it really is finding value where most people don't see it. But not with the most important position in all of sports. And that is the quarterback in the NFL. It is by far the most position in all of sports. And they have passed up on 6 starting quarterbacks since DePodesta has been around. Those quarterbacks are Deshaun Watson and Mitchell Trubisky from this past draft. The other 4 are Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, and Jacoby Brissett. Now, with Jared Goff, there's a little bit of an asterisk there because they didn't actually have that pick. With Carson Wentz, they traded that pick away. But they could have
traded up for
exactly. They could have traded up for Goff if they really wanted to. But not just besides that, they've also missed out on a bunch of quarterbacks even before DePodesta. In 2014, they took Johnny Manziel, but they missed out on Derek Carr, Teddy Bridgewater, and even Blake Bortles they missed out on. 2012, they drafted Trent Richardson and Brandon Weeden, and they missed out on Ryan Tannehill and Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins and RG3. Now, that's also a trade that they would have had to trade up for, or a pick they would also have to trade up for. Altogether, since 2012, they have missed out on 15 starting quarterbacks. And like I said, under Paul DePodesta, they have missed out on 6 in just 2 years. Sorry, Paul, but your plan is not working. This is not baseball. The QB matters more than anything, more than any other position by far. And that's just how this league is. Your metrics are trash. Evaluating Cody Kessler as a good quarterback, but not Dak Prescott, what are you doing? Evaluating Kaiser as a good quarterback, but not Deshaun Watson. Like, I understand you really wanted Myles Garrett, but Myles Garrett isn't going to change the culture of your team like somebody like Deshaun Watson actually can. You could have had Carson Wentz, and you would have been good for 15 years. Philadelphia is going to be good for the next 15 years, assuming Carson Wentz stays relatively healthy, because they traded too much away. Just quickly going over that trade and how ridiculous this is, Philadelphia got Carson Wentz, Donald Pumphrey, and Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett already has 2.5 sacks. Donald Pumphrey was one of the best college running backs in all of college history. Here's the players that the Cleveland Browns have got. They've gotten wide receiver Corey Coleman, offensive tackle Sean Coleman, quarterback Cody Kessler, wide receiver Ricardo Lewis, safety Derek Kinkard, wide receiver Jordan Payton, offensive tackle Spencer Drango, safety Jabril Peppers, quarterback Deshaun Kaiser, another first-round pick from Houston, and another second-round pick from Philly. Where is any of that can you even start? And the ones that you are starting, it's so bad.
The only player on there that even has slightly the amount of talent is Jabril Peppers.
And he hasn't played a game yet. Carson Wentz, his passer rating this season is 104, which is 4th in the NFL. He has 17 touchdowns, which is 1st, only 4 interceptions, a 61.6 completion percentage, and he's 4th in the league in yards. He's mobile, he's tough, and he's used to the cold, but no, you wanted value. James, what do you think?
Well, not that I disagree with you, but I think there's more to it here. First, I do want to add that I do think the quarterback in football is the most important position, but I wouldn't go as far as saying in all of sports by far. I think the goaltending in hockey, you need an elite goalie to win a Stanley Cup. You can't win with a backup goalie. So I think that the goalie comes pretty close. But besides the point, I think the Browns need to give these young guys a chance. If they want to go with DeShone Kizer, you can't put him in there for a game and take him out halfway. You can't put him in there for a game and then take him out the next game and let Kessler start. You're never going to get anywhere with that. You need to, if you want to build from the bottom up and use those value picks, then you need to give these quarterbacks and young guys time to develop. You're going to lose games. But would you rather lose 16 games in 2 straight seasons and then be good for 15 years? Or would you rather win 3 or 4 games a season for the next 15 years? Because that's the path you're on if you continue to go down this route. Hugh Jackson is an awesome offensive coach. Awesome. But DeShone Kizer's never going to learn if he keeps getting yanked. Every time he makes a mistake, they pull him out of the game. In a sense, the way I look at it is this. I just started a new job. I'm learning something totally new that I didn't learn yet. Every time I made a mistake, they fire me? No. Are they going to go and put me in timeout? No, they're going to show me how to do it right so I don't make the same mistake over and over again. Same thing goes for an NFL and a quarterback. This is his new job. Yes, he played quarterback in college, but it's so much more in-depth in the NFL. And to give these guys no room to breathe and no room to make a mistake is you're hindering their development. And I think that is the biggest issue, because if they're being drafted, there has to be the talent there. There has to be talent there. But why isn't that talent working? And that's the one problem that I see. And the only thing that makes sense to me is what I see, is he's not giving these young guys a chance.
See, this is what I want to say right here. Between Hogan and Kizer, their total QBR is 21.9. This is out of 100. If this continues for the rest of the season, this would be on pace for the 4th worst team since they started calculating that stat in 2006. If you just look at Kizer's QPR, just him, it is 15.6. Jamarcus Russell, who we all agree is the biggest bust in NFL history, all 3 of his NFL seasons were better than that. His worst was like 19.7. And this year, Kizer, just let me read some of his numbers. 3 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 3 fumbles. His passer rating is 47.8. That's 32nd in the league out of the 32 possible quarterbacks. 31st is Joe Flacco, and he is at 70.0. So that is a huge gap increase between Joe Flacco and DeShone Kizer.
Now, let me ask you this question, though. Joe Flacco doesn't have anybody looking over his shoulder. Joe Flacco doesn't have a backup who's going to come and take his job from him.
Does DeShone Kizer really, before going into the year, did he really have that guy, though?
He had Hogan. He had Kessler. Kessler came in on several occasions last year, even with Josh McCown, who is a starting quarterback for another team in the NFL right now. So I expect DeShone Kizer to falter like this. He's a rookie. He's playing on the worst team in the NFL. Everybody knew that going into the season, that the Browns and the Jets would be the worst teams in the NFL. And I still believe that, talent-wise. They have a deficiency there in talent. And I know I just said they had talent, but they don't have talent 1 through 53 right now. They don't. Not many teams do. The teams that do make the playoffs. DeShone, tell me this. Every time he goes and takes the field, does he not have the thought in his head, if I make a mistake, I'm getting pulled out of this game? That's adding stress on him. He definitely has that thought. If he can go out there and know, I can make a mistake, but I can learn from this on the next drive, that will loosen him up. That will strengthen his confidence.
But what do you have to say about all these quarterbacks that come in with their first start? Look at Dak Prescott. He as soon as Tony Romo got healthy, Tony Romo had the job. until Dak Prescott played like an animal.
Different cultures. Right now, the Browns have a losing culture, and to change that, you need to. And it's not just the quarterbacks; it's the coaches too. They have a coaching carousel.
Even look at Blake Bortles. Like Blake Bortles, he doesn't have any competition, but he has been trash for 4 years.
And sometimes quarterbacks end up that way, but it's so rare for a team to go through 15 quarterbacks in a row that are like that. There had to have been at least one person on that list that was worthy of a starting quarterback, and it didn't work out because of the team around them, because of the culture. But think about how many coaches the Browns have had, how many systems, how many offensive coordinators. There's no stability in general.
Well, my problem with them is not with Kaiser himself, but with the fact that they drafted him and they use their value metrics thinking he's amazing or that he could be capable, but he is historically bad. Like, he is worse than Jamarcus Russell. Like, if you look at Carson Wentz, Carson Wentz wasn't really that good in his first year, but his QBR was still 49.4, which is pretty average.
And Peyton Manning didn't have a great rookie year.
Well, exactly.
So it happens, but I truly
But I'm not
think
asking him to be amazing. I'm just asking him not to be historically bad.
And that's partly on him, and I think it's partly on the coaching staff as well for not giving him the leash, because you can't expect a rookie to come in and play up to your expectations. You have to ease him in. You have to let him make mistakes to learn, because he's not learning from his mistakes right now. He's making a mistake and being punished for it instead of learning. If this was a better team, if this was the Texans, and we're talking about Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson is playing like this, it's a totally different story. They have a different culture. They have stability on that team. The coaching staff, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the owner. The owner for the Browns is new. Relatively new. So everything about that organization is just constantly in one big turmoil flip, it feels like. And until they can get out of that and find some stability, yes, it'll be 2, 3, maybe 4 years of hell. But after that time frame, I think they really could be good with the amount of talent they could build up, but they have to give it time.
Well, it's the thing with... I understand that, but it's their thinking that, we're going to trade our second round or our second overall pick for all this value, which isn't going to be worth anything, and they think they can just find the next Dak Prescott, but like their evaluation system is terrible.
That only works if you have the best scouts in the NFL. If you can literally find steals 4th, 5th, 6th round, if you have those scouts and you really trust them, then more power to you. But I think that there's more to this Brown situation than just the quarterbacks playing bad. I think it has to do with everything overall, the complete turnover. But going from the worst team in the NFL to maybe the best, do you think that the Philadelphia Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC this year? I mean, 6-1 right now, best record in the NFL. Are they the team to beat in the NFL, let alone the NFC? What do you think? You'll find out next, right here on BTH.
You're listening to Between the Hash Marks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe, brought to you by an unknown sponsor we don't have yet. Now back to the show.
So as I was saying, right before we went to break, are the Eagles the best team in the NFL, let alone the NFC this year with a 6-1 record? I personally don't think so. I think the Cowboys are still the team to beat in the NFC. The Eagles, they have a phenomenal team, but there's a lot of stats that say that they're good. They're offensively 5th in points, 5th in yards per game, 9th in pass, and 4th against the run, or 4th with the run. Those are phenomenal offensive numbers. But there's more to it than that. And I'll go into it. I want to see what your opinion is first.
So, going into this, I was thinking, Philly, the number one team. I was super high on them at the beginning of the year, and like the fact that I'm right now, I'm riding that horse. I'm like, Philly's number one. Screw you, James. You were wrong. I'm right. Like, I got this. But I'm looking at the stats here. I'm looking at all these numbers. I think they have a lot of impressive things, like you were saying, the offensive numbers, and I really love the fact that they played one of the toughest schedules so far, and that the fact that they're 6-1 and they play one of the easiest schedules going forward. So why wouldn't they be able to go something like 14-2 or 13-3? However, just looking at all these other numbers, I disagree with you with the Cowboys as far as regular season, but if they were to face each other in the playoffs, I don't know who I would take. I really have no idea who I would take, but just another team I would definitely take in the playoffs, even if it was in Philly, I would take Seattle. Seattle, to me, is the team that they are starting to come along, and we kind of both thought this at the beginning of the year, that they start slow, and then every year that September is their worst month.
They're the scariest team in the NFC, just like the Patriots, every year in November and December.
Exactly. So the Seahawks I think are the team to beat, especially with the Packers going down, and I don't think the Cowboys are the exact same. I think they have real issues in their secondary, although that defensive line has really, really impressed me. But I want to talk about the Los Angeles Rams right now. The Rams, their offense is incredible. They're the number one offense in the NFL. They're averaging 30.3 points per game, and their defense is looking great too. They've only given up 19.7. That is third in the NFC. The only teams ahead of them are Minnesota, who I also think Minnesota has a chance of being better, and Seattle, who we were just talking about. Seattle, we think is the best.
The only reason that I don't like the Rams right now, and I think they look phenomenal, and I like watching them play, but I'm going to throw out an example for you, and it's something that I know you will understand. The Patriots haven't looked great to start the season.
Correct.
But your mindset, both of us, they're going to be a great team moving forwards. They're going to make the playoffs, and chances are it's going to be either them or the Steelers in the Super Bowl for the AFC this year.
Okay.
Right? The Rams have looked great, but I need to see more from them. The Patriots have been so good for so long that we know even with a struggling start, they will find their legs, they will find their season, and they will be fine. I'm afraid that the Rams might fall off at some point because I know it's a new coach, it's a new system, a lot of new players too. But they have proven time and time again that they will fall off. And I want to see it for an entire season before I can say, all right, this team has really taken that step.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that's holding me back right now. Is I just want to see more from them. I want to see more consistent.
The thing that I like from them is that they should have beaten the Seahawks. They had that Todd Gurley touchdown that rolled out of the back of the end zone.
Just like Savarian Jenkins.
Exactly. But they also, on the final drive of the game, Jared Goff hit Cooper Kupp in the back of the end zone with a pass, and it bounced off. It was going to be a tough catch, but it bounced off of his hands, and it's like, they had two opportunities there where they outplayed the Seahawks the entire game.
I believe this is their only loss against the Seahawks at home in the last 4 seasons.
No, exactly, which is weird to think about. But there are other losses to the Redskins, and we've seen the Redskins are a little bit better than we initially thought as well.
They're so inconsistent. They are so good, and then they're so bad.
I mean, if they don't
so good, and then they're so bad.
If they don't play on Monday night, they're fine. other than that, but yeah, Monday night games, Kirk Cousins is absolutely terrible. I just want to run through some other teams that I don't think they are better than Philly, but I think they have potential to be. We talked about the Seahawks. We talked about Dallas. How about the New Orleans Saints? And it's funny.
I am so happy you brought them up.
And I had to bring them up because you had them early prediction, and then you cast yourself aside. You said, "Fuck this! I was completely wrong."
They look terrible.
No, they did.
If you go, it's funny because I actually just picked up the Saints defense in my fantasy league because they put up like 15, 14, and 16 over the last 3 weeks.
No, they've been amazing.
But the first 2 weeks of the season, they had -7 and -8. Their defense looked so bad. Drew Brees has always looked like Drew Brees, but that defense scared me, and I'm not gonna lie, it did. But the Saints look like the team I thought they were going to be in the beginning of the season, and I actually feel confident about them. And they're not going to go 12-4 like I thought, but I could see them going 10-6, maybe 9-7, maybe 11-5, somewhere in that range. But I do see them winning this NFC South right now because no other team in that division looks even remotely close to being a good football team. Atlanta can't finish a game for the life of them. Going back to last season, Cam Newton, I honestly don't know what's wrong with him.
So I'm glad
most inconsistent quarterback I've ever seen. He's so talented and can never get the job done.
I'm glad you brought Cam Newton up because the Panthers was another team on my list. Now I don't have the Panthers as high of a percentage of being better than Philly, but I have them as that team, and I picked them from the beginning to win this division. But like you said, Cam Newton is super inconsistent, and it's just like we're gonna be looking back at his season as the season goes on, and we're going to say, oh, is that New England win really worth, like, was it really viewed as something important, or that Detroit win, was it really viewed as something important? Because we're looking at New England, their defense was terrible then. Yeah, it's better now, but we have to evaluate the team how it was then.
I know that Greg Olsen is hurt, but Cam Newton has been inconsistent except for his MVP season. He's had Greg Olsen his whole career. He's got so many. He's got McCaffrey now. Yeah. He's had Olsen. He's had Benjamin, even though
Funchess looks a lot better.
Yeah, he's got weapons. Yeah. Why he's so inconsistent?
And his defense is they're first in the NFC in yards per game.
Now going to the defense of the NFC, I just want to touch on the Eagles because they are the top team in the NFL.
Okay.
Record-wise right now, their defense is not anywhere close to being top. Yes, they're first against the rush per game, 67 yards. But they're 29th against the pass, 272 yards per game, 20th in yards, 339, and 20.9 against points, 12th in the NFL. So they only have one in the top 10 out of 4 categories. I want to run through some really quick stats and see what your opinion is. Sacks for per sacks against is 18 and 19, with more sacks against them than for them. 21 to 17 touchdowns. They've only let up 4 less touchdowns than they've scored, and their turnover differential is only a +4 for being 6-1. Now, this is the most impressive stat I think I've ever seen going into this podcast for this season so far. The Eagles this year on third downs are 50 for 99 on third down conversions, basically just over 50%, and their opponents are 28 for 85, and I think that right there, that stat shows you why they're 6-1, because they stay on the field, and when it's time to play defense, they get off the field, and it doesn't matter about all these other stats. That's the one stat that matters to me, because third down is the most important down in the NFL.
Well, and is that stat reliable? Is that stat going to be consistent throughout the course of the season?
If they can continue this, they will be just fine.
Yeah, no, that's the $1 million question. One of the things you did bring this up that I do want to get on. Their offensive line, they have real problems, especially after losing their All-Pro offensive tackle in
that fourth, Jason Peters.
Yes.
That fourth.
I almost said Marcus Peters for some reason. I don't know why I was thinking Marcus Peters, but whatever.
Great cornerback for the Chiefs.
Yeah, great.
But that 131.7 yards per game, which is 4th right now in the league for rushing attack, that top 5 rushing attack is going to take a hit with Jason Peters out.
Yeah, absolutely. And also another one of their major problems is their secondary. And we kind of saw it from Kirk Cousins a little bit, but the fact is that defensive line is so good. Like that defensive line,
number 1 against the run in the NFL.
They put real pressure on the quarterback. Fletcher Cox is one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, and nobody really says that. Everybody's talking about J.J. Watt and Von Miller and whatnot, but nobody's ever talking about Fletcher Cox, and I just want to give him his credit there. But I do want to bring something up here. Now, Philly's defense is kind of, now all the problems I just said with the secondary, Philly's defense is kind of reminding me a little bit of New England's from previous years, and the fact that they're bend, don't break. They are 10th in the NFC in yards per game, which is really bad. It's only out of 16 teams. But they are 5th in points per game allowed in the NFC. So
they give up a lot of yards,
yeah, exactly.
But they're not giving up a lot of points.
Exactly. So that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why I do like them. And I'm just looking at their point differential, and they've averaged 28.4 per game, and they've only given up, like I said, 20.9. So that's good for 7.5. Which out of the teams that I have that are potentially better than them, that's second only to the Rams.
Now, the reason I think the Cowboys are still the team to beat right now, at least in the NFC East, even though their record does not show it. What are the 2 most important things on a football team on the offensive side of the ball? Your quarterback and your offensive line. The Cowboys have the best offensive line in the game, and their quarterback, he may not be the best quarterback, he may not even be a top 10, but he takes care of the ball and he gets the job done. And with those 2 things, if Zeke can stay on the field, I would not be surprised to see the Cowboys win out, even if their defense is suspect. They can put up 35 points a game just like the Rams have been.
Yeah,
and that's why I like them.
And that offensive line, that is one of the reasons why I hesitate when I say Seattle. Not just Philly, but Seattle, because Seattle is really good, but their offensive line is terrible, absolutely terrible.
They're the Giants' offensive line.
Now, if they were to play somebody like Minnesota, and that Minnesota defense, and that Minnesota is the final team that I have that is potentially better than Philadelphia. And I think if Minnesota, not
look what happened to the last time Minnesota and Seattle played.
Yeah, exactly.
Came down to Blair Walsh, who missed the 22-yard field goal. So the last time Seattle and the Vikings played in the playoffs, the Vikings defense kept them in it because of Seattle's offensive line.
Yeah,
Seattle
exactly.
only won because Blair Walsh missed a 22-yard field goal, which is made really 99 out of 100 times, with that
absolutely.
being the one miss. So you made an extremely valid point with that.
And also, the Vikings, they could give real real issues. You just said the Eagles have given up 19 sacks this year. The Vikings could also give those real issues, especially with Jason Peters going down. So if that matchup were to happen, I don't know. I don't know. But I do think the Eagles are better than the Cowboys.
What I do know is that this is all going to make for an amazing end of this NFL season.
Absolutely. Tell us what you think. Coming up next on BTH, we're going to talk some World Series baseball.
It's unfortunate the Yanks aren't in it.
Oh, no. I get to finally enjoy this series. You're listening to BTH.
You're listening to Between the Hash Marks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe, brought to you by an unknown sponsor we don't have yet. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to BTH, and we got the World Series going on now. I love Super Bowl, World Series, Stanley Cup, NBA Championship.
Any finals.
Yeah, any finals. That time of year for any type of sport, awesome time. So diving right into it, this World Series I think should be the best. No, I'm a Yankees fan. Unfortunately, they did not make it. Fell one game shy. Otherwise, it would have been the best World Series ever. No, I'm just kidding. 2 100-team wins. We actually might have the 2 best teams from the American League and the National League playing for the World Series this year, which is cool because you don't always get that. You don't always get the best teams, and now we have the best teams. We are loaded with talent. This World Series could go any way, in my opinion. So much good pitching, so much good hitting, both sides of the ball. The one advantage I have to go with, Dodgers have the better bullpen. But is that going to win them the World Series? We're yet to find out, but that's why I love sports. There's so much here. You got Carlos Correa, you have Altuve, you have George Springer, you have Bregman, you have so many players on this Astros lineup that are young, and they are here to stay. It's mind-boggling to see these young kids perform at such a high level. And now Altuve's not a kid, but going into last night's game, he was batting a .400 for the postseason.
Yeah, he's absolutely insane. The thing about this World Series, I completely agree with you. I think this is the 2 best teams we've seen, and it's the first time we've had 2 100-win teams in the World Series in like 50 years, something like that. So the fact that that's even a thing right now, I think this has the potential to be the best World Series ever. Now, I just want to give you my thoughts on how I think the rest of this series is going to go down. Now, at the beginning of the year, I was in a pool with friends. We all picked a team, random team, to win the World Series, and I picked the Houston Astros. So I have money on the Houston Astros right now. But as you know, when we did our after trade deadline predictions, I thought the Dodgers were going to beat the Red Sox. It doesn't matter who the Dodgers are playing. I think the Dodgers are going to win the World Series, and I still think that to this day. Now, going into Game 2, I think Justin Verlander is going to dominate, and I think he is so freaking amazing. He's like something like 9-0 since the Astros have gotten him.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that
exactly 9-0.
Absolutely insane to me. Like, it's just like, oh, I'm on a good team now. I can dominate, and I'll get the run support, and I'll be great.
I just witnessed it.
Yeah, you did.
I just witnessed it.
You did. You absolutely did, and I praise him. I will pray to Justin Verlander every night because of what he did to the New York Yankees. But I see Houston getting Game 2, and then it goes back to Houston. And I think it's really smart of the LA Dodgers to do this. They're having Yu Darvish go Game 3. I think that's their second best pitcher. I know it's not their second best ERA pitcher, but I think it's by far their second best pitcher. And I think having him go in Houston, where he's played against Houston in Houston a lot. He was in that same division for years.
And now he doesn't have to bat.
Exactly. He doesn't have to bat. So I think Yu Darvish is going to absolutely have an amazing game. I think LA is going to win Game 3. But then I think I'm just going to go back to Houston, Game 4, because I don't think Alex Wood is a postseason pitcher. And not that Colin McHugh, they said McCullers is going to go Game 3 and McHugh is going to go Game 4. McHugh hasn't been that amazing this year, but I think with the Houston Astros fan base, they're going to liven up that crowd, and they're going to be two bad pitchers, and that's going to be a high-scoring game in this World Series. So I think the Astros are going to edge it out in that one. Game 5. Now this is going to be the most pivotal game in the World Series. It's going to be Kershaw against Keuchel again in Houston this time, and Keuchel is absolutely amazing at home.
Quick stat for you. Keuchel has a ERA in the low 2s at home, in the low 4s on the road. I know that didn't show last night. He was phenomenal last night.
He pitched phenomenal last night.
But at home, he is heads and tails way better than he is on the road.
And Houston gets a lot of run support at home. Normally, they get a lot of run support at home.
They had the highest run average per game in the major leagues this year, and I think it's been the highest in like 50 years or something like that.
Yeah, so I think, but I think what I've seen with Kershaw, he has actually been a good pitcher in the playoffs when he's had the full 5 days rest, and he's going to have the full 5 days rest if he pitches game 5. So I'm giving the slight edge to Kershaw. And it's not like saying that, I'm talking about the Houston bats, so they're going to be so good. The Dodger bats are simply amazing as well. It's insane because the Dodgers, they did not expect to have this lineup going into the year.
Bellinger, Turner.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you know? They're absolutely insanely amazing. But then this series goes back to Houston, or is back to LA, sorry, and Verlander's going to be pitching again. And if Verlander is pitching...
Deja vu.
If Verlander is pitching for the Astros to win the World Series, they're going to win the World Series. It doesn't matter what Verlander's pitching for. Verlander's going to win Game 6 because he's so freaking phenomenal. And then it's Game 7. In Game 7, if the Dodgers aren't dumb and they're like, oh, let's go with Kershaw, if they just go with Yu Darvish in Game 7, if it gets to Game 7, then they're going to be fine, and they're going to win the World Series.
You could always bring Kershaw out of the bullpen.
They could do that for like an inning, and that's okay.
Maybe the 9th.
But don't have him go more than an inning, even 1 1/3. No, take him out. Well, what are your opinions on this World Series as far as the results of it happening?
I think that you're on the right track, and I know that we disagree on a lot of things, but the one thing that I think if this is how you're going, this is how I interpreted that. Either the Astros win this in 6 or the Dodgers win this in 7.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. If the Astros are up 3-2 heading to LA with Verlander on the mound, the Dodgers have no chance. Verlander is experienced. Unfortunately, I don't think many people, if anybody, except for Curtis Granderson, who I should mention is not on this World Series roster for the Dodgers, has World Series experience.
Yeah.
That's going to go a long way with Justin Verlander having that experience. This could end up being the best World Series of all time. I can't wait to see how it plays out. There are so many factors. We haven't even talked about the heat yet. It was 103 degrees yesterday in LA.
Hottest game in World Series history.
They showed the last 5 World Series Game 1s. Everything was in the 60s and 50s, going back all the way to 2011. And all of a sudden it jumps up to 103 degrees in LA, and the ball travels farther in the heat. But the way I can describe this series in one sentence, I think this series is going to be like the Dodgers' first at bat, no matter who wins. This World Series is going to be a home run. First pitch, first swing, and not just a home run, but a 450 home run that almost left the entire ballpark. That's what this World Series is going to be in a nutshell, no matter who wins. I think it's going to be phenomenal.
Just a quick question here for you. I know you think the Astros are going to win this, but do you think Clayton Kershaw really proved something last night with his Game 1 gem? Do you think he got that monkey off his back that's given to him by the media and just other people?
Yes, Clayton Kershaw got the monkey off his back. Something that, let's not get mixed up here. I know Verlander's great. I know Keuchel's great. Kershaw might go down as the best pitcher of all time ever. There's nobody in the MLB that is better than Kershaw right now, regular season or playoffs. I truly believe that Kershaw goes head-to-head with anybody, including Verlander. If Kershaw somehow pitches Game 6 and not Game 5, and no matter what, that's the only way. If the Astros are up 3-2 going into Game 6 with Verlander, and Kershaw's on the mound that day, this is going 7. I don't see them losing a game with Kershaw on the mound. He's too good. And the one thing, I never really watched Kershaw pitch because he plays out in LA. I'm a Yankees fan. I follow the Yankees. Dodgers don't play on TV a lot here in South Florida. And I don't have the MLB packages. It's very expensive. The one thing I noticed is he's so deceptive when he pitches. You can't see when the ball's coming out of his hand, and you can't see what type of grip he has of the ball in his hand when he's throwing it. So many pitchers give that away and tip off their pitches before the ball leaves their hand. Kershaw doesn't do that. And just like I heard last night, he has a curveball that is very slow, mid-70s, somewhere in that range. But he has a slider that looks like a fastball, but it's in between. It's in the mid-80s, and hitters can't pick it up because when it's coming in, it looks like it's a fastball, but then it comes in and almost ends as a curveball, and that's his slider, and it's impossible to pick up. And they were showing it over and over and over. And
does Kershaw need to win this World Series to be considered one of the greats?
Yes, you have to win a World Series, in my opinion, and I know my opinion may not go far. You guys, nobody, is Derek Jeter the same Derek Jeter if he doesn't win 5 titles?
No.
Thank you. Is Martin Brodeur the same best goalie ever if he doesn't win the 3 Stanley Cups? Is Tom Brady the GOAT if he doesn't win 5 Super Bowls?
No.
So Kershaw needs at least one to be considered in that conversation.
I think if he gets it,
and I think he will get it.
I think if he gets it, he is going to go down as a top 5, top 10 pitcher of all time.
Of all time.
If he doesn't get it, he's outside of it.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Now, the one thing that I want to say is I really don't know if he's going to get it this year. I really, truly believe the Astros are going to. I believe in fate, things like that. Houston had the terrible weather. So many things went wrong for that city. And
you think the stars are aligning for them?
Yeah, just like kind of the stars aligned for Boston after the marathon.
Yep.
I just think it's too good to not be true. And I somehow think Houston will pull it out, but Kershaw, this will not fall on his shoulders. They will win the games he plays, I think. And he is the best pitcher in the game right now, and there's no arguing that.
So, bullet to my head, I say LA in 7. What do you got?
Astros in 6.
All right. Tell us what you think. Be sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on iTunes, also the Android podcast app. You can also email the show, bthashmarks@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
You're between the hash marks.